morning, everybody. And when Businessworld approached and said that, would you like to come and do this session, I thought it was so relevant in today's time. And after listening to Anurag in the initial stages where he said, would a CEO actually go and do an HR function? I can give my own personal example. Before I got this role, I'd asked my CEO, the then CEO of KPMG, saying that, give me this role for 2 years and I will do what I need to do, but it should be unhindered, unshackled. So some CEOs are willing to take on, or potential CEOs are willing to take on this kind of role. But I think the issue and this thing that people is very, very important and very critical, I would say, to the growth of any organization. Because if you have a satisfied, motivated staff, the performance of the organization gets reflected by those people. So I think it's very, very important that you have motivated staff, and motivated staff can only happen if the way you treat them. I think it's also important to look here and understand how does the leadership, and when I talk of leadership, it's just not the CEO, I'm talking the entire leadership of an organization behave. Do they actually walk the talk? So you're dealing with one set of people who are at one generation, second generation, third and fourth generation. How do you deal with different sets of employees? I'll give you an example. One day, this one guy applied for leave. This is a real life example, it's not stories from some book. He applied for leave and so the guy gave leave, and then suddenly he said, no, I'm not feeling well now and I'm sick, so I want another day's leave. On the Facebook post was saying he's enjoying a holiday in some Kurg or somewhere, and so his manager called him up and asked him that you said you were sick and you are enjoying a holiday in Kurg. He's saying that's the way I am. So this is the generation you're dealing with, and you're dealing with this generation. You have to understand how do you want to deal with this generation, how you need to do it. And I think organizations need to change. They need to be flexible. They need to be able to understand how these individuals deal with. I think we need to get out of our process mentality. We need to become business partners. We need to work side by side with the CEO. You need to understand the business because number one, you are dealing with the most important asset. And if you are dealing with the most important asset, you have to say, how am I going to get the best out of that asset? And you can only get the best if you understand the challenges of that business and you understand what makes that business tick. Because if you know what makes that business tick, you will then understand as HR professionals, what is the talent I need to hire? How do I retain that talent? And what do I need to do to motivate that talent? Because if you know what they're going to do, HR has to be that bridge between people and the management. You need to be that bridge. You need to inspire trust and confidence of your people. Your people need to trust you. Because if they're going to tell you something, you need to use that information to the best of your ability, how you want to get it. I'll give you one small example, another example, and this again from an earlier organization. Before I joined KPMG, I used to work. And this guy was working in the firm, in that organization for about 18 months. And then he resigned, and he was a senior manager, by the way. I resigned and was leaving, and on the last day when he was leaving, he gets a call, and this guy says, I am Vishal from HR, and you cannot leave on this day, because you have to serve this notice or whatever. He said, for 18 months, HR did not touch my life. I'm not going to let you touch my life on the last day of my work in this organization. So I think the important point in life is, does HR touch the life of people who work there? Do they actually go out of their way to touch the life of individuals who work? And I think it's really important. The question that you may need to ask yourself is, does the CEO consult me when he's discussing strategy? Do I sit on the top table in that organization? Does he confide in me succession planning in the organization? If you start getting those answers to those questions in the positive, you know that you're making a valuable contribution to that organization and you're actually playing a critical role in steering that organization to the next level. I think that is something really important, and I think that's something that we should all aspire to be, because like I said, whatever may be the organization, people are integral and important. So may I request Sanjay, if you could give your opening comments. And
thanks, Richard. I think when I joined the industry, we were looking at profit, followed by people, and then planet. About 4 or 5 years back, the equation changed. We started looking at people, then we looked at profit, and then planet. Now going forward today, I think what is driving across is planet. Because if you are not considering your environment and planet seriously, it's going to have a huge impact on your business. Followed by people, and profit is a derived factor. Now when you take the fast changing pace and when you take the change in this equation, what it puts onus is, or what is the central factor is people. So I don't think so if businesses are talking about people or CEO is saying, you know, I can be a chief talent officer, there is some kind of a social service they are doing. It is the macroeconomic environment which is clearly telling the businesses that if you do not take your people seriously, you will not come with the business processes and technology which can be helpful to the planet, with which you can compete globally or regionally being effective, and hence drive profit which your bottom line requires. So I think this is the biggest factor. The first thing that you need to understand is that it is very difficult to define competition today, right? We don't know from where competition will come. Today to start off business is so easy, you know. I can sit in my room, I need to have an internet connection and I can launch. Earlier what was restricting launching new businesses was know-how. I do not have proper know-how, where do I go, you know, and hence the time was spent, and capital. Today, being on internet, I can touch base with 3 management consultants online who can give me everything about that business or nuances, and I can read 10 particular white papers and I can launch business, right? Capital is not as tough as it used to be in 1990s. If you have a good idea, there would be people who can possibly support you, right? So I think those are the kind of things and changes which are happening. And hence, the transition which is moving is because everything is moving around people, the entire boardroom is moving into HR. We like it or not, this is not a thing which you and me can control. Because if tomorrow in a board meeting, a CEO is asked, you know, give me your attrition numbers and a retention number and tell me what's the next big idea, and he had a attrition problem, he very well go back to the drawing board. So this is something which business is driving, and companies who are able to sensitize that, CEOs who are able to take the mantle of a chief people officer, chief marketing officer, and a chief talent officer, will be in a position to succeed, will be in a position to compete globally.
Thank you, Sanjay. May I request Umang to share your opening comments?
Thanks, Richard. When I joined Adobe 4 years ago, we were charging you 75,000 rupees for Photoshop, right? You know, I can understand why you didn't buy it, right? That's a lot of money. And fundamentally, what we found was, you know, when you are the market leader, you are the category leader, but you're not growing your business, there's something wrong. You need to broaden the lens. So sitting with our people, we did a number of experiments, and what we then did is we were the first company in the world to lead a revolution to shut down our perpetual licensing business. So today, if you want to buy the 75,000 rupee Photoshop, you can't. It's not available. And the India office led this revolution starting in last November. So we were the first country to shut it down. Adobe globally shut it down, and we launched something which is known as the Creative Cloud. It's a subscription-based model, makes stuff far more affordable. Now, just think about if it's a subscription-based model, taking 20 pieces of software into the cloud and updating it every week rather than an 18-month cycle, you need teams to work together. You need the Photoshop guy to talk to the InDesign guy, to talk to the Illustrator guy, to talk to the digital publishing guy. That was not happening earlier, right? And we found the biggest mistake that we were doing was our performance appraisal system. Okay, we found 3 issues with the annual performance appraisal system. All of you have it, right? Show of hands. How many people have an annual performance appraisal system in the room? Everyone, right? And I can tell you what we observed with a lot of research and data. So the first thing that we found, it was the annual performance appraisal was like this dreaded once-in-a-year doctor's appointment, right? Going to a dentist to get your teeth shown. You know, it was all about reflecting about your performance in the last year, but let's be frank. If you do research, you'll find that the events of the last few weeks, months, really played a big role on the performance appraisal. The second thing that we found, it was like looking into a rearview mirror, right? You're always looking backwards in terms of what the performance was. You were never really looking forward in terms of how to grow the individual. And finally, if, we use all these cliches, and sorry for saying that, but people is our biggest asset. Umang said that our IP goes home every night. Richard said they are the #1 asset class that you have. Then why would you stack rank and pit one employee against the other, right? It just doesn't make sense if that's your most valuable asset. And what we did was, because our business was becoming more agile, we were delivering software in a new model, we were building software in a new model, we were charging for software in a new model, we were recognizing revenue to the street in a new model, we were getting agile. So what we did as a process is, we took a cue of just changing this entire system on its head. So we moved into a process which is known as check-ins, right? And a check-in is a process which every quarter, the employee and the manager sit down. There are only 6 corporate objectives. Those 6 corporate objectives roll down to all 11,000 people in different forms of fashion. And you map, your manager and you decide which objectives you align to and influence. And after that, at the end of the quarter, there's a feedback conversation. It's a 2-way conversation, and what derives out of it is an individual development plan. So you're looking at growth and development as well. And I think a couple of more things that we focused on is around innovation. So we brought in innovation into the stream of every employee. We now have about 400 patents which are coming out of India alone. And we've got stuff like kickstart programs, which we call the Adobe Kickbox, where if you have an idea, we fund it, right? And bring it up to a certain stage, and the management does not interfere with you. And of course, there's a lot around workplace, making the environment a lot more employee-friendly, and focusing on senior leadership and taking up the game. HR today sits in every board meeting, sits in every review, sits in every strategy session. And in fact, they drive a lot of the hiring strategies because we're a digital company. Where do you find digital DNA? It's not that easy, right? And they're the ones leading the charge. So that's just a quick input from my side in terms of some of the learnings that we've had and some of the things that we've implemented that I hope you find useful.
Thanks, Umang.